Deceit and betrayal often lead to the disillusionment that we have about the people in our lives who meant a great deal. If you have been betrayed, it comes at a cost that is much greater than a regular end to a relationship. Because betrayal not only takes the future that you believed you could have, but the past along with it. When somebody betrays your trust, they betray your friendship, your relationship, you have to look back at the past, and you're constantly asking the question of, when did this start? When did it happen? Did I miss the signs? How can I trust myself? How can I trust other people? And these questions seem to be never ending and seem to be ones that hold us back until we finally are brave enough to look them in the face. I've had to deal with betrayal at a level that I've never had to in these past few months. I really wanted this year to just simply be a renaissance. I wanted to move on into my next chapter and to start over, which is what I'm doing, but I've had to do it first on terms that weren't my own. And that betrayal put at first a darker shadow over my life, but I'm transitioning out of that now, and I want to share why and what I've done to get to this place, because it is so hard when you feel so alone and that you don't know how to overcome that. And when betrayal does happen, the first thing you start to question is your own self-worth and value and your own ability to make decisions, because you trusted this person, this company, and what ended up happening was they betrayed your trust at every level and deceived you in a way that you never expected, because you trusted and you cared about these people. So 2 things on that: you being the person that cared about someone and trusted and put in the work, and the other person didn't show up or they took advantage, is not your fault. It doesn't mean that your worth is a reflection of that decision. Just because they decided to leave on those terms does not reflect on your value as a person and your ability to be a person. That was a decision they decided to make, and it is a reflection of them and not a reflection of you, which is hard to accept, because you're like, we talked every single day throughout the day, and all of a sudden they stopped talking to me. Somebody that isn't able to make a mature decision to explain what's going on and to show up for you is not a person that is worth a place in your life. And it's hard to accept it, but that is the first thing that you really have to do, is you have to accept that this is a reflection of them and not a reflection of you. This is not a reflection of your self-worth or your ability to be a friend or a worker. This is a reflection of their inability to communicate and to show up in a respectful and meaningful way. And as hard as it is to accept that, it is better to know that this is the person that they are now, so that you're not wasting another 10, 15 months, hours, years with this person, this company, this place, because now you know the truth. And the truth is hard to accept, but that is really the first thing that you have to do, is accept that this is the reality. Those people walked out on you, that job let you go, that person is no longer in love with you. It didn't work out how you wanted to do, and you need to accept it. And acceptance doesn't mean that you agree with it. It doesn't mean that you have decided that this is the truth, that it happened the way it was supposed to. You're just accepting that you cannot change what happened, but that you have to move on regardless of what other people chose for your life. And when your own worth and value is being put into question at this time, the best way to mitigate it is to take a step back and to write out the stuff that you have accomplished, and do so in a notebook that you think is really nice and really pretty, like this one. This is a notebook that I bought mid-year last year, and it has blank pages in it, which I prefer to write on blank pages instead of lined. It gives me more freedom to write however I would like to. And one of the big things that people often do is they'll buy something really nice and never use it, because they don't think that it's the right time or that the current situation is valuable to use that thing. So if you have a notebook or you have stationery that you have been waiting for the perfect time, use that for writing out this list, because you have already been shown that your value is in question. So take your power back by buying or using this very pretty thing that you have told yourself before wasn't worth it right now. You need to change the narrative in your own mind that what you have to say and what you have to offer is of value, and that nice notebook that maybe costs 20 bucks that has a pretty cover is worthy of the words that you have to say. You have been shown by people who didn't value what you had to say. So take your power back by buying that nice piece of stationery and writing out what it is that you are offering to yourself and to the world and the choices that you want to make going forward. There's a great freedom in finally being shown the truth by the company, the people, the friends, the partners. When they show you that they don't like you, when they don't want you, you have this incredible freedom to now go forward and to take your power back in every way that you can. Go and do the things that being around those people held you back from. If you were at a job that took up so many of your hours, take this time to do something for you. And if you were let go and you're looking for another job, that level of stress is immense. There will be another job that comes along. Keep working on it. Keep trying. But at the end of it all, there's more hours for you to spend on yourself. Just think about it. How many hours did you spend listening to those people and caring for them and showing up for them? Did they do that for you? So the first step is acceptance, and then the second step is the rumination. There is so much rumination that happens when someone betrays you because you're asking those questions of, when did this go wrong? What were they thinking this entire time? Did they always feel this way? Were they always just one day gonna get up and go? And you may not want to look at that truth, but you should be looking at the past through that lens and trying to figure that out. If you are looking back at the past and you can't let it go, you're probably stuck up on the fun moments that you had where you laughed together, where you understood one another, where you felt connected in a way to that person that you've never felt with anyone else, and that's okay. But ruminating only on the good is going to keep you stuck in that place for a very long time. So if you are going to ruminate on the past, and if that rumination is going to last a long time, ruminate on what actually happened. Don't glorify that person or that situation or that event and ruminate on that. Ruminate on what actually happened and the fact that they weren't there for you. Let go of what was going on at the time that it happened, because you need to move on. You need to accept that this is what's happened. So actually look at what happened. Think about the times that they weren't there for your birthday, that they really didn't care how your day went, that they were kind of jealous when you told them something that you wanted to do, where they wanted to keep you stuck in the place that you've always been. Look at those truths. And the honeymoon phase that we all go through is us just ignoring the actual signs of who a person is because we think they're funny or we like them or we're attracted to them, and we just want to be as amicable and sweet and nice as possible. But if you are looking at the truth of who this person is and what they're doing and why, it is a lot easier to be discerning of a person in the moment. But if you can't do it, if you have gone through the honeymoon phase and you were super in love and you cared or you loved them, and now you're dealing with the betrayal, look back on the past with that discerning light and say, where did it go wrong? How did their behavior not always stack up? Was there a moment where they threw something and you saw a little different version of them? What were the moments that showed you who they are and you didn't want to see it back then? Look at it this time around and actually accept it for what it is. So rumination is going to happen. The past few months, it feels like various things will trigger it. Seeing a post from that company, seeing a message from that person or your friend mentioning that they saw them, or things will remind you of it. Maybe you'll see something that you would have laughed at with that friend who you're no longer friends with. It will get easier with time, but there will be things that trigger you thinking about it, and you have to, in those moments, fully accept those feelings of what's going on and say, you know what, I don't know why they did it, I don't know how someone could do that, and also be happy that you can't understand them. that you couldn't do that to someone, that you couldn't just walk out and never speak to somebody again, that you couldn't do that. You're a different person than them, and it's better that you found it now. And that's really difficult to share to someone, and it's just the reality of what you have to do. And there was betrayals at multiple levels for me over these past few months. First the company let me go, and then the people that I was really close friends with at work were very weird. Nobody really spoke to me or knew how to speak to me. It was bizarre. I've done a video about where I go into that a little bit more. And then the third betrayal was people that weren't related to either the job or that industry in general, and they were just my regular friends. And they also, for the majority of them, did not know how to deal with it. They weren't there for me. And that really leads me into the third, which is the decision. At some point, you have to decide that you're no longer handing your power away to people who don't want it. There's very few things that we can control in this world, but the very few things we can control include our view of the world and our ability to decide. Those are two things that you have full control over. You can decide to look at the world through the lens that everything is happening in your favor, that things happen for a reason, or you can look at it through the lens that everything is against me, no one likes me, I'm unlucky, and whichever lens you choose to look at is more opportunities of that you're going to see. So if you decide to take this as a reflection that you're unworthy, unlovable, no one wants to work with you, you're not a hard worker, you're not interesting, no one's gonna care about you, you will continue to see that reflection to you. And when you get a next rejection for a new job, you're just going to double down on that view instead of seeing it as like, this just wasn't the job for me, that there is better opportunity out there. And I know 2 months ago, it was very hard for me to even believe that everything was going to shift in the right way, but I had to make the decision, and I had to make that decision over and over again to say, I'm moving on, and these people no longer deserve power over my life. Of course, there are still moments where I have to decide that, but every decision that I make where I'm choosing to laugh at the movie that was funny, or to just eat and be present with the food, and to just drink water and be present with that, is a decision that I'm taking my power back, because we are continuing to hand off that power to people who have given us proof that they don't want it and they don't want anything to do with us. So don't hand your power to these people who have clearly shown you they don't care about you. And as hard as it is to witness that people don't want you in their life, you have to let it go, and you have to decide, I need to move on and I need to keep going, because at the end of the day, there is nothing more important than you deciding, I am better than what happened and I deserve more. And if you have just gone through a breakup, or you were with a company for a long time and now you're no longer there, you might be thinking, how could I ever find a company or person that I connect to as much as I once did? And the truth is, you probably are going to find a better company, but you are going to find it on better terms, because now you have reevaluated your boundaries and what you're okay with and what you're not. And I knew while I was at the last job that I actively was making the decision that I would never be that close to people that I work with again. And that was a decision that I made regardless of what happened, because we were far too close and it was always one-sided. And you have to realize that a lot of times when we do grieve things, we're only grieving like the best parts, but in its entirety, I didn't have the space and the bandwidth to do the things that I wanted because of how much this job took over my life. And I've made multiple videos about that, and I couldn't do it anymore. Now I know that the next place that I go to, it's going to be on different terms, and sometimes those lessons are the hardest to learn, but they're the most important, because at the end of the day, there is nothing that we can do if we do not understand and accept the moment that is in front of us as what it is. Those people are not coming back into your life, and there was many days where I was like, they're gonna call me one day and it's all gonna be all right, and you know, that's always a fantasy, right? Your mind is going to create scenarios and tricks so that it can deal with the pain that it's going through. But you don't want this person or this job or this place to be back in your life. Because when you are betrayed at the level that you're probably experiencing, you don't want that person back. You don't want that job back. You don't want that person you were back then back either. And that's another thing that you're grieving, is the person you were with them. And you probably liked that person because you were that person for a long time. But the person you are after that betrayal is a different person. And that person that you have become is also grieving the version of you that you were before. So you're grieving on like 15 different fronts, and you are going to have to deal with it on all 15 fronts at the same time. There's no easy way to say that day one, you're just going to deal with the betrayal of the company. Day two, you're just going to deal with the betrayal of this friend. And then you feel it all the time, all at once. And being alone at this time is important because you need to recenter and reground yourself in the idea of you and who you are and what your values are. Some of those people may have exploited your choices or who you are for various reasons, and you need to go through the process of forgiving yourself and moving through that. And all of this is a decision. There was other times in my life where I had been betrayed, where a friend that I'd known for a very long time suddenly stopped talking to me, and that had happened multiple times where friends that I talked to for years had just out of nowhere stopped talking to me, which is a very similar situation that I'm going through right now. And I was looking back on it and I was like, what happened back then that I like moved on? What happened? And all of it was a decision. One day I was thinking about a scenario, or my mind was just thinking about them and running with a thought, and I just came to the decision. I was like, I just don't care anymore. I can't give my power away here anymore. They took your power while they were in your life. I cannot give them any more power now. I can't keep handing off who I am to these people who never cared. And that is difficult. It's hard to accept that, but it's acceptance that we have to do at the end of the day. And that's really what we have to do. We have to move on. We have to decide. So if you're going through betrayal, first thing you're going to have to do is accept it and reevaluate your own worth by writing out your values, what you learned, what you've been through. Write out your story and write it on that really pretty notebook that you've been saving for a really special occasion. And if you don't have one, go and buy one, or use those stickers that you really liked. Just do something for you that represents to you that your worth is valid and it's real and it's yours to define, not somebody else to tell you. So write out who you are and what you want from this world, and accept that those people are no longer there and that they never really were there for you. If you're gonna ruminate on the truth of that person and not just the fantasy of that person. Ruminate on the fact they weren't there for you, that they did something that you at the time questioned but ignored because you were just enamored at the time with this person or this situation. But look at the reality of what it was. Don't just ruminate on the fantasy. Ruminate on who they actually were. That awkwardness, the inability for them to show up for you, their monologuing. Ruminate on that, not on the fantasy that you've created about them, because it'll make it a lot easier to move on. And then the third is the decision. You have to decide. And it is a decision that you make on the first day as much as you make 6 months later. It is a decision that you continually have to make and have to go through, and you have to forgive yourself. It is a constant process of forgiving yourself for staying with them too long, forgiving yourself for not seeing what was going on, forgiving yourself that that person that you were no longer exists, forgiving yourself. And that is the only person you need to forgive in this situation. Nobody else deserves your forgiveness, just you, so that you can move on. Forgive them on your own. Don't text them, don't call them. And I guess that would be another thing that I would say too. Cut off all communication to all of those people. Stop talking to them, move on. They don't deserve your time. They have shown you that they don't. They have shown you exactly what they think about you, so move on. Ghosting someone, hurting their feelings in that way, sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. So cut off communication. If every time you see their name on your phone, or you hear about that company, or you hear about that situation, it makes you upset, it just rips that wound open one more time. You've ripped the wound open enough, let it go, move on, make that decision. If you need to cut off communication completely for a little while, do that. If you want to reach out to them a few months later, you can. But I would suggest when somebody betrays you, let them go completely. And as difficult as it is, it's 100% more difficult when that person has access to your life. Let them go. And if you are hurting the person who hurt you, honestly, at that point, it really doesn't matter. Just move on, because your worth and your value and your peace are much more important than somebody else's feelings. Because that person has already shown you that they don't care about your feelings and how you feel, so you're not owing them any more time. The only person you owe anything to is yourself. Make that your priority in this time. And when you are being faced with going back into the world and trusting people again, it'll be that much easier, because now you have recreated that foundation with yourself. You love who you are, you know who you are, and whether somebody else likes you or not, you are no longer looking for their validation. So when someone betrays us, it is because we looked to them to validate parts of ourselves. And when they're no longer doing that, we now have the freedom to validate our own existence, and that is the only person who really can. So do that, follow through with that. And betrayal is something that we will face over and over again. And it is not trust in the branch that the bird has, it's the trust in her wings. You have to trust yourself. So the next time you meet someone and you're wondering, well, can I trust them? Can I not? The trust is not in them. It has never been in another person. It's always been in yourself. The trust that you can move on and deal with the consequences of whatever decision you make. You can, and you will get through it. And it's not easy. It's very difficult. And it is going to be one of the most rewarding things that you go through when you walk on to the other side and you have accepted that your validation and your worth are tied to who you are and not who they thought you were. Let them go. This is your life. You have to decide. Let me know if you've been through a betrayal that has shaken you to the core, but it hasn't destroyed you. And I want you to hold on to that truth. I will see you soon. Have a great week.